You read the screenplay. I'm sure you love the screenplay, but you have to make the movie. What was your initial like, oh my God, how are we going to pull this off?
Incredible question. Well, we were really boots on the ground. We started to carve out Bob's journey, who's our main character who lives up in the redwoods of Northern California. And then we traveled down, going to cities throughout California that I haven't really been visited, or shot or filmed at, and started to build the world. And what was incredible about that process is that we really got to carve out all these different moments and environments for each of these characters. So there's Bob's world, the beginning when you meet the French 75, which is a combination of Sacramento and Los Angeles, and then Midlands, California, when he meets the sisters, and then down to Texas for, moments with the border, and also that was our city for Eureka. So it was a massive undertaking to kind of stitch this movie together, but incredibly rewarding.
I'd argue the most important scene is actually the one scene Chase and Leo have together, really.
Yes.
And it sets up his character's changed completely. What was the point of that said? You had to make it, and you really had one moment to establish their two characters and the tone for the rest of the movie.
It was really important to show the contrast. Bob's such an idealist in the beginning, he's a revolutionary, and then we come to meet him 16 years later, and he lives in isolation, protecting his daughter, but that's also created a paranoid state that he's lived in, trying to protect her and also living, in this mysterious woods. So we went to the location that was also inspired by Violin, the Thomas Pynchon novel. And we worked really closely with Leonardo DiCaprio, working through Bob's character, noticing how people live in the woods, that, sheltered and cautious life. And so it's interesting because he goes from being a liberal to being a conservative, paranoid freak. And so, bringing those layers of what his life looks like now, which is, a middle-aged dad trying to raise his teenage daughter and maybe struggling like the best of them.
But contrast that to our evil white supremacy society. How did you want to contrast those two sets in those two different, places?
I mean, naturally they had a juxtaposition where Bob is enclosed by these redwoods. A lot of that activity, our makeshift military, is the border and desert and vast, desert lands, which is where Bob ends up as well. So I like to think about it as Bob being protected, and then not only is it a battle to get his daughter, but it's what happens when you get outside of your comfort zone and meet life and meet all these people. And I love the way that we find environments and we find characters and we don't know what happens to them. And so a lot of our work too is storytelling within those worlds, to go beyond the script of saying, like, well, how do the sisters make money? How does Sensei make money? That was his development of the whole Harriet Tubman immigration sequence, was to give backstory and credibility to all these characters that Bob is interacting with on his journey.
All right, so one battle. The opening is great with Leo and Tiana Taylor setting up the world. Well, how did you want to shoot their idealistic world and kind of their opening part of the story?
I mean, at the beginning of the movie was all about just making just this really rough look, a lot of industrial colors and things like that. And Flo Martin, the production designer, had laid out this whole thing, and she just did it. She and Anthony Carlino, the set decorator, had designed this whole situation, very shiny things, and it was all about just making, just movement and just yuckiness. And this industrial world that we'd play, these colors that we'd play against the normal stuff later.
My favorite scene actually is when you have to shift in the future, Leo and Chase's big scene. You had to totally reset his life, reset the tone of the film. What was the process kind of shooting that scene? Because I think everything emotionally, falls on that scene. Because you got to establish the relationship in a couple of minutes. What were your thoughts on that, shooting that?
It was just, that was some of the first stuff we shot in the film. Huh? And it was really the beginning of the movie was actually the thing we shot at the end. That was our last thing we shot. And so but the stuff with her was just about creating a warm environment that would be kind of like more of a familial setting, and then hijinks ensue.
And how about shooting the evil white supremacy society with Lockjaw? Yeah. How fun was kind of shooting those scenes?
That was just crazy. Every day you'd come to work and you're just like, this is nuts. Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Okay, One Battle After Another. Beautiful film. Let's talk a little about the process. You have two different time frames.
Yeah.
and characters in much different spaces. We'll start with Leo. How did you approach Leo's transformation into the good-looking movie star we see at the beginning and the disheveled, lost guy at the end?
Yeah, it was a little bit of a process because it was supposed to be just kind of done in CGI. And so we fought the good fight with Leo and creating the two different looks and it was actually quite challenging because we have a director that doesn't want to wait for actors in makeup and hair. So he got kind of semi-permanent hair extensions for the longer hair, so we didn't have to do it every morning. And we shaved him, and we the schedule was allowed for us to shoot him first with a beard on, and then have him shave. Then we had some time off, and then he grew a beard again. So it was challenging, but it was a lot of fun, and we are happy that CGI didn't take over.
Yes.
And now, I felt the scene where Leo and Chase are first together was the most important scene in the movie, establishing their relationship and their looks. What was the process of creating Chase and Leo's look in that scene?
I think that's all about acting, isn't it? That cohesive, thing, and I don't think it really had anything to do with us, even though I would like to think so.
Now, Sean Penn's look had a lot to do with different hair looks to do. What was the process of creating Sean Penn?
Yeah.
Kind of like him getting into the trailer and sitting in her chair and just slowly just sinking into his character. That was it.
And he goes through a big transformation by the end of the film. What were the challenges for him at the end?
Yeah, Ariane Tuitian did that makeup and created that. We did a lot of research on, I didn't know people actually survive being shot in the face. So I started pulling some research and it was quite daunting looking at all these photos, but and then we hired Ariane and he kind of took it over and took it from there.